We've been talking about the realities of God, and I'm so thankful that we don't have to say, oh, well, if that's what it is, I don't really want it, because you know what, if that's been your impression of life in God or anything else, you just haven't seen God yet. You know, my brother-in-law, Mark, he likes to say, what does he say? If you're not too impressed, if you're not too wowed by God, you just haven't seen him yet. Amen? You haven't seen him the way he really is yet. And if you've been disappointed in him, that's fine. But that's not the way he is. He's really good. We had some good stuff last week, didn't we? What is God really like? And that's really important, isn't it? I'm going to kind of go from that a little bit this morning, because I want to talk about roles. Did you know that we all are fulfilling a role of some kind? You ever, we talk about jobs, but, when you take a job, you kind of need a job description, don't you? You kind of need to know what's expected of you. Otherwise, your boss can get really mad at you. This will happen if you go, if you show up on the corner and you say, I'd like some work, please. And they say, okay. We're doing some concrete construction. And you say, well, I can do it. You've never done it before, But you say, oh, I can do it. And you get out. And everybody's doing stuff, and you're trying to do and you're just flat messing up. And your boss is going to get really mad at you, isn't he? And you're not going to make it through the day. You're just going to do some. And, the only fault was you just didn't know what you were supposed to do. And the boss, you can really get mad at them. Well, that boss was really mean to me. He wasn't nice at all. He should have talked to me nice anyway. He should have been, But the problem wasn't the boss, was it? You didn't know your role. You hadn't done it. You hadn't worked through it. You hadn't processed it, had you? There's a necessity for us to understand who God is, but then for us to understand what God's role is and what our role is. And so I've got several scriptures I want to get through, and I want to get through them all. But I want to just touch on, first of all, what God's role is. And then, it's not just all Him. He's all powerful. He's almighty. He can do anything. So why doesn't He? If He can do that, why doesn't He? Right? He's a bad God. Is that true? No, He's just doing His role, and He's faithful in His role. He never fails in His role. It's just, the thing is, if you're going to be on a team, and you're going to do more than just get splinters in your bottom from sitting on the bench, if you're actually going to get in the game, you're going to have to contribute to the team, aren't you? You're going to have to be part of it. You're going to have to know your role. And this is how it is with God. God, in His interaction with us, is all about teamwork. It says, He could save the whole world today. It's already provided for, isn't it? There's enough grace for all the sin in the world today. Everybody needs to be. Why don't we just pray for the whole world to be saved? We've got a prayer thing on the website. And I'll have these guys. Man, they'll give a whole list of prayers. And then they'll cap it off with, and pray that the whole world will be saved. Okay, we'll do that. Right? Well, it's already been done as far as God's role is concerned, isn't it? Right? That means that we are very powerful in this thing with God. That we have something to do. Amen? It's not just works. It's not just saying, okay, man, if I just do enough, God will like me enough, and then He might give me a kiss. It's not that, is it? And yet there's a side that He has provided. He said, okay, I'm going to do everything, and I'm here right now for you all the time. Amen? Yeah. I like that last song that we sang. Man, we can trust in Him. He's faithful. Yes. Amen. He never It's so important for us to enter into praise and worship. Why is it? Because this is reality. We're living in this facade all the time. And for a few little moments on a Sunday morning, we come together and we start tapping into reality, how great God is, what he's done for us. That's why we praise him, because he's already given his life for us. Amen? That's why we praise him. And what happens when we praise him? We're actually starting to take our role. He does all the heavy lifting. We have a role to play, though. Amen? So, what does it mean to have God as our God? And what is our role in relation to him? You know, there's parts of the world that have gods. And they have a real clear understanding of what a God is. But sometimes I'm driving down the road and I'm thinking, man, God. That's somebody that, you know, we don't have a clue sometimes, do we? What a God is, or what the role of a God is. A God is actually, he occupies your devotion. He occupies your thoughts. He occupies. And then what is the role of somebody that says somebody's their God? It's got to change who you are, doesn't it? You're going to have to do something a little bit different. And here's the problem. Do you ever watch Steve Urkel? Right? What's his famous thing? You know, I was trying to remember his name. Can you believe it? Couldn't remember his name. So it's funny, though. You put in Google, if you just put, did I do that? First thing, Steve Urkel. Right? Because he's always doing something, right? He doesn't know what he's capable of. Did I do that? Right? He's always doing something accidentally. We are filled with the Holy Ghost. We're amazing. And stuff happens and we say, did I do that? I thought God was going to do something. Why did something mess up? Well, maybe I did something, or maybe I didn't do something. Maybe there's somebody else involved here in whether things are going right or not. Amen? Maybe for us it should be, didn't I do that? Right? Is there a part for me to play in this incredible thing that is an interaction with God? Amen? So I just got a few things here. Here's God's role. He's all powerful, isn't he? He does all the work. He's the one that we yoke up with, and it's easy, right? He has the power, the ability. He's readily available. Okay, so there's two sides of looking at God's role. We can say, well, if that's what he is, then let's just sit back and watch him. Right? He's going to do it anyway. Doesn't really matter what we do. He's God. He does what he wants to do. There's that side of it, right? Or we can say, on the other side, we can say, well, if he can do everything, then he better start doing what I tell him to do. You know what I mean? He's become my servant. God, do this. It says if I tell you to do this, you're going to do it. Well, you better get to work. Right? And then what happens with that? Then you can become very disappointed. You can decide you don't even believe in God anymore because you asked him to do something and he didn't do it. He should snap to it. Right? Is that the role of God? Okay. And yet, is it hitting this anywhere? Right? Amen? What is our role? You know, I didn't ask to be born. Did y'all ask to be born? I didn't ask to be born. We show up on this earth, kicking and screaming, you know. Some of us, it doesn't ever stop. We just keep kicking and screaming all our life, right? But God made us. He knew us while we were in our womb. In her womb, I guess. Or in our own womb. He knew us, you know, when we were just an embryo. He formed us. We talked about that on Wednesday. It's just amazing what God has done. Amen? So what is our role? Well, really, if you have a God and he's any good at all and he's actually your God, what's the first thing you think? Well, I should benefit from this, right? There should be a positive. It should be good, right? I would think so. Now, you can also be avoiding some bad stuff, right? You say, well, I have a God because I don't want to go to hell, right? Well, that's kind of good too, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to be destroyed. I don't want to perish. I want to have eternal life, right? But there's a benefit. There should be a benefit in knowing God. So, if there's these benefits, are they just abstract whims of a God who's moody? Does he kind of like stuff to do? Does he like, oh man, that's a really nice person. I'm going to bless them really well. Is that how God is? Because I mean, that's, that again, let's be sensitive to how we see things, right? Because people are seeing it that way. Oh, that person's blessed with more gifts than I am. God's more of a God to them. They're benefiting more than I am. Hey, you can look at people that are wealthy that way, and you say, well, man, God's blessed. God's more of a God to them, right? Or we can say, again, from our perspective, we can say, well, he's my servant. And has he failed in his role when things don't go as we've directed him? Right? So there's this side of us. There's a role for us in this interaction with God, right? But in reality, he is faithful. It gives me a new understanding when he said, great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. What is that faithfulness? It's God's role. Amen? He's a provider. He provides, well, let me just not get ahead of myself too much. Let's look at this. So this is God. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. Again, I'm just going to try to tap into the main things that we want to see here. He provides, he heals, he delivers, he sets free, he does all these things. But what is that? That's a God that's all powerful. He can do anything, can't he? So let's look at an example of this in Jeremiah 32. He has an ability beyond comprehension. Let's just stop and go humana, 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 and think about how big we think God can be. And as big as we humana, and as long as we want to take the humana, he's still going to be bigger than our humanas. Right? Because he's huge. He's beyond imagination, right? Ah, sovereign Lord. Ah, Lord God, thou hast made the heavens and the... This is where this came from. You have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. You show love to thousands, but bring the punishment for the parents' sins into the laps of their children after them. Great and mighty God, whose name is the Lord Almighty. Great are your purposes, and mighty are your deeds. Your eyes are open to the ways of all mankind. You reward each person. Why didn't they just stop there? Right? According to their conduct, and as their deeds deserve. You can say, well, that's the Old Testament. I'm sure glad that's the Old Testament, because it don't matter no more, right? But like we said last week, there's certain things about God that just aren't changing. Again, if that were true, then we'd be like Lucy. We'd have lots of explaining to do. Right? We have a lot of things that we'd have to come up with. As why? Because God, he's the same all the time. And there's people that are doing without. And it's not his fault. Right. Amen? Right. Now let's go on down to the 26th verse. And what's kind of interesting here is he's declaring himself to be capable of doing anything. And we'll kind of see what happens here. So then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. I am the Lord, the God of all mankind. Is anything too hard for me? Now what's kind of interesting here is he's talking to people that have been, remember, he came to Moses, he said, I'm going to deliver my children from Egypt, right? He said, you're going to deliver them. You're going to go and deliver them. And this is God talking. When God says something, it happens, right? And what do we have with Deuteronomy? Deuteronomy comes along and he says, if you do all these things, if you walk in the way I say you're going to do, you're going to be blessed all your life. You're going to have all these things. You're having all these things. You're going to have all these things, right? So they get into the promised land finally after all those years. And they're blessed for a while. The walls of Jericho, what do? They come falling down, don't they? But what happens? They get in there, they have a king, and then they get other kings. David's, he's pretty cool. Solomon's not too bad, but then, boy, you start having some issues with some of these kings. And what happens? All the blessings that were promised by God through Moses for Israel. This is God being God. He's doing his role, isn't he? But what happens to Israel? They come along and they decide some other things. I think we'll go with another God. Yeah? Not a good idea. Might be kind of fun for a day or two, but it's not a good idea because what happened? It's kind of like in our nation today. You know, you want to have all this stuff, but you don't realize you're going to end up having nothing as a result of everybody just wanting to have stuff, right? And this is kind of what happened to Israel. They said, oh, we want to have this, we want to have that. But we don't want to be under God. We don't want to fulfill our role. And so what happened? Enemy nations came in and took them over, didn't they? They call it the diaspora, where Israel was taken from their land. They're taken out and here's King, well, I won't get to that too soon. But in this instance, God is getting ready. He's getting ready to actually say, judgment is going to come upon you because you haven't chosen me. He's getting ready to say that. And we sing songs about this and we say, Lord God, thou hast made, nothing is too difficult for you. Nothing is too difficult for you. And he's giving it as an example before he brings judgment upon people that have not chosen him. Is that interesting? I don't want to go on to the next verses. I just want to stay on how great God is. Right? But wow, there's a part that we have to play. God is great. He says, is there anything too difficult for me? No, there's nothing too difficult for you. Well, then you better start playing your role. You might better start taking your place. Amen? Let's look at Ephesians 3:14. It's very important that we get it right how great God is. Amen? And we start appreciating his role. You know, I wrote in the bulletin today, you know, you come into a big corporation and you finally get a job. You get your foot in the door. You get to clean the toilets. Right? But you watch the president going down the hallway of the corporation. You think, man, I could do his job. He's nothing. I see him walking down the hall. I can walk down the hall too. You know? Right? I can do that. I have zero. I've worked at that place for 10 days already. I have zero appreciation for that president. He's nothing. You know what? You're never going to rise from your position as cleaning toilets for one thing. Right? And you're never going to be the president. You don't realize what it takes. You don't have any appreciation at all. We're never going to be God, but we better have an appreciation for who he is. Amen? For this reason, I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being. This is God doing his part, isn't it? So that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. This is God. He's able. He's doing it right now. Did you know He's working in your life right now? Whether you even appreciate the way He walks the halls. That was supposed to be funny. Okay. To Him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. He says, I just pray that you will become filled with your role so that God may complete His role in you. Amen? This is powerful stuff. This isn't just a light thing. You know, I thought about it this way. How many are impressed with what God does? Well, we say, oh man, He can do anything anyhow. He just rolls out of bed and says, let there be light, and there's light. I mean, it's no big deal for Him, right? But you know, it is a big deal. It's a big deal for Him, and it's a big deal from His perspective. Now, it's a big deal what He's doing for us right now. It's big to Him. He's big. He can do anything, but what He's doing is important. Amen? It's significant. For us to fulfill our role, it will not rise above our appreciation for what His role is. Amen? We got to appreciate what He's done. I like that song. That's why we praise Him. That's why we sing. It makes a difference what He's done. We need a revelation of it though, don't we? Because we have to be jerked out of the status quo. I don't want to stay in the status quo. I want to be separated from mundaneness, passivity, where God just is just, wow, a distant memory somewhere. Amen? Because I'll tell you right now, we're not a distant memory to Him. He's actively at work in our life right now. Amen? He's fulfilling His role. The passion of our heart should be that of Paul, that we might be filled with the knowledge, so that we could be strong. There's a benefit to knowing God, but not if He's just a God that you don't even interact or take your part in. Amen? We have to take our part. So what is our role? It's a worshiper. There's a lot to worship. I just want to go through several things here. I'm just going to look at it real quick. Okay, I'm going to look at the part of our role. These are some headings, okay? We got to call, all right? We got to give. We got to ask. We got to cast. We got to be patient. We got to be strong. And then we're going to do some work, okay? All these things that we're talking about here today, they're our role. They are important. If we don't do them, nobody else is going to do them. We're going to look at a story here. Esther, right? We're going to look at Esther here in a little bit, and it's going to be really good. First thing we have to realize is that we have to call. First thing, interaction with God, and this never happened. This never stops. You know, I saw this in some of our reading. It talked about Abraham, and it said he went into I forget what area it was. He was never at home, was he? He was always going somewhere or staying somewhere for a while or so. This is Abraham, father of many nations. Well, you think he'd have a place, wouldn't you? But he's always going somewhere. And it said, and then he went to this place, and there he called on the Lord. I'm thinking, what did that sound like? Abraham calling on the Lord. Was he saying, God, I need some sheep? Was he just trying to get stuff from God, or was he calling on God? Relationship. Abraham, he had all his needs supplied, didn't he? He said, but in this place, he called on God. Right? Romans 10:11. And Scripture says, anyone who believes in Him will never be put to shame. For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all, and richly blesses all who call on Him. Amen? Yeah. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord, everyone will be saved. Does this leave anybody out? So that means God is God. He's great. He can do anything. He's already provided. He's already done all these things for us. And then it says, and whoever calls on him will be saved. Right? So somehow, in our realization of our role, we have to realize that calling is a very significant part that we play. Amen? On a daily basis, I got to call out to God. Amen? I need salvation on a daily basis. I'm thankful that I'm going to heaven, that I'm secure, that God's never going to reject me. But I need active benefits, salvation from God today. What is my role in that? Because God's already done it. What makes it change for me? I got to call. I got to call out to God. Can I just have a passive relationship with God on a daily basis? You know what's implicit with calling? Passion. Amen? I don't just roll over in the morning and say, hi, God, and fall back to sleep. Right? At some point, and this happens, this is one thing about tragedy. This is one thing about third world parts of the world where this is meaning life or death. It rises to the level of importance that unless I do something, it's not going to change. What happened to that king? He was told he's going to die, and he turns his face to the wall and he says, "No, I'm calling out to God." Right? The level that we have God as our God in our life is the level that we call out to Him and consider it important. You know, sometimes I've had a problem with some of these songs that say, "I'm desperate for you." You know, this is my daily bread. But you know what? It's very true. I have to be desperate for you or I'm not calling. Amen? This can't be something I can sleep through. It's got to be something that wakens me to action. Amen? Next thing I've got here is what happens when we come to God. We've already said it. This interaction is a thing of benefiting from God. Right? Well, it's different with God because the way you benefit from God is you don't come to Him to get. You come to Him to give. Amen? So when we're calling out to God, we got to say, God, how do I give? How is there something in me that's even worthy of you? But here it is, whatever it is. Amen? Because this is how it works. 2 Corinthians 9:6. I want to benefit from God. I'm going to have some seed. I'm going to have to put some seed in the ground. I'm going to have to plant. I'm going to have to. We did it today, didn't we? When we're giving in an offering, what are we doing? We're fulfilling our role. God desires, and He's already provided all the blessings that we need. Amen? He said, but you're going to have to come to me. You're going to have to call out to me. We're going to have some communication here. I'm going to have to hear your heart. I'm going to have to hear your passion. Right? But you don't come to me and just say, what you got for me, God? And He is faithful in this part. This is really cool. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Now, let's not just tie money to this. We can give in different ways. Amen? Do you have a gift at all? I like to think about gifts this way. A gift is to be given, not to be kept. Right? If you've got a gift, then you're supposed to be giving it. Right? Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Some people get stuck on that and they say, well, I just don't have anything in my heart to give. Well, that's why let's put calling on God in the first place here, because when you call out to God, He's going to put something in you to give. In fact, what you have is going to be giving. Amen? You're going to realize that nothing you have is yours. You might have been really smart, and you might have really put a lot of stuff together, and you might have filled your bank up with a lot of stuff, but it's all staying here when you breathe your last. It's not going to be here. Amen? Each of you should give, okay, and God is able to bless you abundantly. We're talking about God's ability again, aren't we? But it's dependent upon our role, right? And God is able, right, to bless you abundantly. I like some of these songs that just do that last verse. God is able to make all grace abound to you. God is able. So then in all things you can be blessed. This is the result of somebody who's taken their role, though, isn't it? Amen? He's able. This is God. He's fulfilling his role. So that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. There's a sow in there, isn't there? It's not the planting sow. It's a consequential sow. Oh, God's able, isn't he? But there's a sow in there that says, you have a part to play in it when you give. Amen? So I can't just have a God and say, God, why didn't you give me all that stuff that everybody else has? Really shouldn't be caught up with all this stuff here on this earth anyway, right? Where your treasure is, there's your heart. I don't want my heart here on this earth. Amen? Look at Galatians 6. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. There's some sowing here that this just does not sound like just money to me. Does it to you? It sounds like what you're actually giving of yourself to. Amen? So if I want to reap something from God, how many want to reap something from God? I want to. But you know what? That's not my focus necessarily. What I want is to give into him. Amen? Yeah. Remember what Solomon, God asked Solomon what he wanted? And he could ask for all the stuff. And what did he ask for? He wanted the ability to take his knowledge and turn it into action that would be productive. To give of himself to something. Amen? And what came as a result of that? He became the richest man in the world. And you know what? I don't know if that was his motivation. It wasn't, was it? He just wanted to be able to give of himself. What's a motivation for having wisdom? To be able to interject from inside of me something that'll make things right. Amen? I've got another one here. So we have what? Call. We're going to give. Let's ask, okay? And I see asking is just a little bit different than calling because, again, calling is just, God, you're my God. I have to have you. But then there's some things that enter into our life that we cannot just, we'd have to be numbskulls. God would have to come and take part of our frontal lobe out or something. You know, if we didn't go through life and be affected by lack or abundance. Right? And or relationships. We're going to be affected by things, but we're not supposed to carry any of it. We're just supposed to ask. Yeah. Amen? We're not supposed to care about anything. John 15. John 15:16. And you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. Why didn't the Father just go ahead and give it to you? Because you got to do your role. Amen? We have to do our part. Now, there's a scripture that says also that you can ask incorrectly if you're just wanting to consume it upon your lusts. Right? We could spend a whole bunch of time on each one of these, right? But there's this element. If I'm going to have a God, if he's really going to be my God, I can't just blame him if I haven't even asked him. And then when I ask him, all the timing's in his court. And I believe I have it when I ask. Amen? So the next thing we will do, we're going to ask him, and then we're going to cast. We ask him, and then the care of it, what do we do with it? Is it ever our role to bear any kind of grief or any kind of anxiety? You know, somehow we're trained this way, aren't we? We feel like we have to carry it somehow. Oh, if I don't worry about it, it's just not going to ever get fixed. Did it ever get fixed by you worrying about it? Never worked, did it? Never. Might as well just try some casting, right? But you don't cast by just going, ugh. It's not something you just, no, you cast by taking his promises and replacing the anxiety with what he said he's going to do. Right. Amen? Yes. 1 Peter 5:6. And you know what that is? That's humility. Oh, but I have the right to feel this way. Don't you tell me you're just a snob. You're just a religious snob. Telling me I can't feel like this. Right? Did you know what that is? You know what the inverse of this is? When you decide that you're going to carry something yourself, not to offend anybody too much, but that's pride. You think that you can carry it better. You're going to take... Oh, I've seen that president walk those halls. I can do that too. I'm one person, not under God. I don't need God. I can carry this thing myself. I can carry this anxiety. Watch me. See how hard it is on me. Right? We don't have to do that at all, do we? We just humble ourselves and say, okay, what does God say about it? Amen? What is God's role in this? I'm going to let him do his role. Now I'm going to do my role. I'm going to fulfill my role now. And what is that? Humble yourself, therefore, under God's mighty hand. Right? Is there any problem with God's hand? No, his hand's mighty. So what do I have to? What's my role? I got to humble myself. Right? Yes. That he may. Did you know that God needs our permission? Wow. The God who made all the universe needs my permission to bless me. Right? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Wow, I'm important. Did you know that you're important? Wow. God may bless me if I let him. We have a role, don't we? Right? Yeah. He doesn't get to do stuff unless we let him. And he passionately wants to. Amen? He passionately needs us to just humble ourselves. Let our flesh get out of the way so that he can do his role in our life. Amen? So what happens when we do that? In the process of doing that, we are casting our anxiety. You know, there's diseases that have to do with the mind. There's diseases that have to do with emotional things. But I would venture to say that most of them could be treated, could be dealt with by God, being God, and somebody taking their role in relation to that. Amen? Anxieties don't have to just overwhelm. We don't have to say, oh, here comes an anxiety. Ooh, I wilt. There was a song he used to like when I was a kid. It was kind of making fun and said, wilt thou? Somebody said, wilt thou in this song? And he said, so I'm wilted now. We get it all twisted around. We think that we're just supposed to wilt under God saying, can I? Amen? Say, no, I wouldn't even ask you to do that, God. You're just too big and wonderful. I'm not even. He needs us to. He wants us to. Amen? Cast all your care on him because he cares for you. Then we got to be patient. Here's Habakkuk 2:2. So when we cast our care, you know what? Our care is waiting on the doorstep the next day. It might have already tried to crawl up on our shoulder the next day. So we got to cast it again, don't we? And you know what? You start getting used to this and you can get kind of good at it. And it can become, it turns into patience. Amen? Where you say, man, I'm kind of getting good at this. And what that patience is doing, it's perfecting your faith. What are we doing when we're doing this? We're preserving our relationship with God. Yeah. Amen? He's staying as our God. God can slip out of his role in our life if we don't stay in our role. Amen? But it's going to require sticking to it and not starting to doubt him and his role. I got to believe. It's like I was watching Remember the Titans. You ever watched Remember the Titans? And what happened to the coaches? They said, man, if you just get your offense going, we'd win this game. Well, yeah, if you just get your defense going. Sometimes we can do that with God. God, if you just do your part, we have a little victory in my life. Right? He's saying, no, you do your part. I've already done my part. Amen? But then you got to stick with it. Got to stick with the game plan. Then the Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. You know, I was talking with Travis last night. We were talking about things that need to be done in the church here. And he said, man, I got to write stuff down. I'll just forget it right away. You know, we're that way. What we're talking about here right now will completely change your life. But if we walk out of here and we just forget it and we don't do anything with it, we'll just stay the same. Amen? God wants to be big in our life. He wants us to take the role of a worshiper where our life is being transformed by him. But it's got to rise to the role of importance to where we write it down. Do you write, when you go to the grocery store, what do? So everybody just got this wonderful brain that, I remember everything. And then you start getting all the stuff you shouldn't have got because you get there, right? Right? Because you get there and you didn't really remember, right? Some point, God's got to rise in the level of importance in our life that we begin to write the revelation he gives to us. Little plug real quick. We've got a reading thing on our website. I encourage everybody to get on there, read the chapter a day with us. Start to write down revelation that God gives you. Amen? Because there's a role we have to play in this. And when I start to cast my cares, I'm going to have to say, okay, because I'm going to be tempted not to, and I'm going to have to go back to the first level, and I'm going to say, why did I believe him in the first place? I'm going to have to go back to that. I'm going to say, okay, I'm sticking with that. I might feel like something else right now, but no, I got to go back to this. Right? Yeah. So that herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. Sometimes it might not happen right now. I like McDonald's, okay. I use this too much. And I found out these guys like McDonald's this morning too. What's the wonderful thing about McDonald's? 5 minutes from now, I can have a Big Mac in my mouth. Right? Real quick, I can have it. Right? Yes. Now, here's the thing about faith. In less time than that, I can have the promise of God in my heart. I might not be experiencing it, savoring it in my mouth like a Big Mac. But as far as God's concerned, he's already fulfilled his role. I'm just going to have to stay faithful to mine. That's right. Amen? Yes. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of an end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. So what's my role? God said it, I'm going to wait. Amen? I'm not going to falter from that. That's my role. I'm just going to be faithful in my role. You know, when we sing great as thy faithfulness, what's supposed to take place? We're supposed to have a transformation of our faithfulness by seeing his. Yeah. Amen? James 1:4. Let perseverance finish its work. And I already said this, didn't I? so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. What is that? That's somebody that has a God, isn't it? That has a God that benefits them. That's somebody that's taken their role in relationship to that God. Somebody that's decided to be patient, to not compromise their relationship with God. Amen? Let me go through a couple real quick. You hanging in here with me? Are we okay? Be strong. Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the full armor of God. I'm not going to go through all this, all the stuff we're supposed to put on. We're supposed to pray. We're supposed to pray in the Spirit. And what are we supposed to be? Strong. What's coming out of our mouth ever? I'm weak. I'm tired. I can't do it. That's somebody not taking their role, is it?
That's good.
Right? So the coach is looking for somebody to put in at the end of the game. Is he going to go up to somebody and say, all right, Steve, go into the game? Say, oh, but I'm weak. Oh, I like it because you're weak. I want somebody that's weak. Go into the game. We need weak people in the game. But what can change completely? Just if I say, I'm strong, I can do it. Man, I saw a guy playing yesterday. I forget what the game was. There were some games on. This quarterback, man, his arm was just blown. I think it was against OSU, wasn't it? Wasn't that? He put that game out of his mind. I don't know if it was that game or not. But no, I think it was a different one. This quarterback, his shoulder was completely, I mean, you could see every time he threw, it just pained him to do it. But man, he was throwing strikes. He was hitting these guys. And you see him going around. You know what he was saying every time? I can do this. I'm strong. I can do this. Right? It doesn't matter what we're going through. If he said we can, we be strong. What's our role? Be strong. But I'm, what? Did he provide weakness for you? No, he said, when you're weak, say I'm strong. Oh, so my role is to be strong. Man, I'm going to have to change some way I'm thinking about myself sometimes. Right? How am I going to do that? I better start saying it. Because I ain't going to be able to be anything until I start saying it. Right? Just simply. If I'm saying I'm weak, there's no way I can do it. Now, if you got to go take a test, you can't say, man, I'm going to fail this test. Right? They say, so, I don't know if I can do it. I can do it. Right? You have to start off with that. You might better study too, quite a bit. All right. Okay, and this last one I want to look at is work. You're going to have to do some stuff, okay? 2 Timothy 3:16, all Scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped to every good work. Here's the thing. We've talked about all these things about being benefits, but there's a role for you to play in the kingdom that is significant, that only you can play. Nobody else can. And if you don't play it, somebody's going to not benefit as a result of your failure to fulfill your role. Okay? So here's the story of Esther, right? You know the story of Esther? She's part of the diaspora too, right? It's the Hebrew children living in exile. And King Xerxes, or however you say his name, Xerxes, he's unhappy with his wife. She didn't come when he told her to come for a party or something. So he says, I'm going to get another one. And he has a beauty pageant. And he has all the ladies come. And Esther's beautiful. And it said it took 6 months to a year to prepare for this. They have all his perfumes and everything. Anyway, she wins the pageant. She becomes the queen, right? But she never lets on that she's Hebrew. She never lets on where she's come from, right? And here in this kingdom has the thing where you don't come to the king unless he's asked you to come. If you just impose yourself upon the king, and he doesn't raise his scepter and say, it's okay, you're going to be put to death. Well, luckily, he really had a fancy for her. She did the right stuff with the perfume and all that. Right? She had it going in that area, but she had a cousin, right? That she was gifted. She had a cousin that when Haman, one of the men that became leaders under the king, rose up, he said, I need everybody to bow to me. Right? Mordecai wouldn't do that. He said, I'm not going to bow. I'm not going to bow to this man. Well, he got mad and he said, okay, and he said, I want to kill Mordecai, but I don't just want to hurt him. I want to hurt his whole tribe. I want to hurt the Hebrew children altogether. So he said, I'm going to make a rule that whoever doesn't bow to me, their whole people are going to be killed. Right? And Xerxes, he must not, he must have just played golf and stuff. He said, well, whatever. Whatever makes you happy, Haman, I want you to do, I want you to feel good about yourself, whatever. So, okay, we'll just kill everybody. Well, he doesn't even realize that his wife, Esther, is part of these people. So Mordecai comes to Esther and he tells her about this. That's going to happen. Mordecai is just mortified. He's Mordecai the mortified. And he comes and he tells Esther, you got to do something. She says, well, if I do it, my life, there's a risk. I'm going to lose my life if I do this. He said, you're going to lose your life anyway if you don't. Here's part of the thing. We think, well, we have a risk. What risk do we have? There's some portion of my life that I'm going to miss out on. There's something you're going to miss out on life altogether if you don't. Right? So, Esther 4:12. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. So she's telling him, oh, but there's a risk. I'm going to die if I don't do this. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to the royal position for such a time as this. She was gifted in a specific way. She's beautiful. But what was the purpose of her gift? To bring deliverance.
That's right. That's good.
And she in fear and trembling went before the king, right? And what happened? The king raised a scepter and she was accepted. Haman ends up being hanged where he had prepared for Mordecai to be hanged, right? It gets turned. Why? Because she fulfilled her role. So I'm looking at this a little bit different now, aren't we, all of a sudden? Now our role isn't just about us and our God anymore. It's about us in the kingdom. God has a place for us. Fulfilling our role, it's wonderful. It's all about Him. It's all about this. But no, it doesn't stop there. It's an ongoing thing that we are significant in the kingdom. That fulfilling our role is not just about us at all. It's about somebody's salvation. Amen? God has been and will always be great beyond comprehension and faithful in His role towards us. The benefit of having Him as our God is dependent upon us fulfilling our role as a worshiper. There's a necessity. When we become a worshiper, that's why I like to call this place Worship Life. You know, it sounds like, oh, you guys are just a bunch of flakes. No. We're taking our role before our God. And if there's something else that needs to be blessed in somebody else, it will only be because I've taken my role before God, and now I'm going to take it for them. Amen? Why do I serve in the kingdom? Why am I up here right now? Because of all the wonderful things? Not necessarily. You know, in ministry, you get a whole bunch of rejection. You get the devil comes and tries to destroy your family. He tries to destroy you personally. Oh, but there's a risk. But you know what? If I don't, it's all going anyway.
That's right. That's good.
I must fulfill my role. And the purpose that I have, and I have to put it in God's hands, is so that anybody that I can touch will be transformed by the reality of who God is. Amen? I might not ever be, but I'm going to do what I know to do. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to call on God. I'm going to give. Amen? I'm going to ask. I'm going to cast. I'm going to be strong. Amen? And then I'm going to work. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to fulfill the role God's given for me. I've just got a couple more passages. Philippians 2:12. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, now not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. God's working in you right now. This is him doing his part. Again, we got to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. How do we get salvation? We call. Amen? You believe in your heart, you confess with your mouth. This is a continual process. It's something that continues to be happening. Amen? Romans 10:8. But what does it say? The word is near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart. That is the message concerning faith that we proclaim. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified. It's with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. How many can see God right now? I can't. I mean, not with a big beard and flowing gray hair. And I don't know, you know how they make pictures of him? I don't see him like that. But you know what? You can see him in people. You can see evidence of him. But what is faith about? It's about believing when you can't see stuff, isn't it? Amen? And what is it based on? It's based on, there's a substance involved with it. It's this God that we say is our God. And maintaining, what is faith? It's maintaining my role in relation to this God that can do anything. Amen? How do I work out that salvation? I'm going to have my mouth engaged in what God says about me, what is true about him. Amen? And then I've got to take my place. I've got to be faithful in my role. Amen? You know, Esther's a great example. What would have happened to her whole people if she hadn't taken her role? God, you know, that passage says, well, God would have used somebody else. But how many times, you know, sometimes people like to look at the Holocaust. They say, why did that happen? God, if he's all powerful, why didn't he do? Well, maybe somebody was supposed to do something. Maybe somebody didn't take their role. Maybe somebody didn't even just get on their knees. Because God, all through history, something he did was contingent upon somebody fulfilling their role. Right? I thought, why didn't God just take a Holy Ghost sledgehammer, swing it out of heaven, and bop Goliath in the head? He could. He's able. But he took a little red-headed, ruddy boy that hit him with a little rock. What would have happened without David fulfilling his role? What's going to happen if we don't fulfill our role? Well, we're not going to be blessed ourselves. We'll have reason to whine about God or whatever else, right? But even rising maybe a little bit above that is that God's called us to the kingdom for this time. Amen? He's put gifts inside of us that only we can fulfill. There's somebody in this world that only we can touch. That me being right with God, working out my salvation with fear and trembling, is not just about me. So easy to say, oh, that's all about me. I want my salvation. No, somebody else's is contingent upon yours. That's why it's humbling when we say, God, I'm going to humble myself to this. It's not just about me. Amen? Let's pray.